Leonardo da Vinci was born on April 15, 1452 in Vinci, Italy, in this small cottage. This was the best time and place to be born during the Renaissance. He was the illegitimate son of Piero da Vinci and Caterina. He grew up on a small farm with his uncle Francesco, whom he adored. He had a great love for nature and art.
L'arte non è mai finita, solo abbandonata.
When Leonardo da Vinci was 15 years old, he decided to move to Florence, Italy to study art. He was apprenticed to Andrea del Verrocchio. He received formal training in painting and sculpting as an apprentice. In the year 1472, Leonardo was accepted into the Painters Guild, which was a group of extraordinary artists, which only after 3 years was the end for his apprenticeship.
Leonardo da Vinci's first professional painting was the Baptism of Christ. He had help from his master, who had completed most of the painting, and Leonardo was put in charge of only painting one angel.
In 1477, Leonardo created his first art studio in Florence and was assigned to paint an altarpiece for a local church. This piece came to be known as the Adoration of the Magi. Leonardo left Florence in 1482 to accept a position as court artist for Ludovico Sforza, the Duke of Milan. The first piece of work that Leonardo created in Milan was the Virgin of the Rocks. Leonardo also worked for Cesare Borgia, Cardinal Giuliano de' Medici, brother of Leon X, and for the French King François at Amboise, where he died in 1519.
Two of the most famous paintings Leonardo da Vinci ever created included the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. Everybody knows that the Mona Lisa was created by Leonardo, but the identity of the woman still remains unknown. Some people believe that the Mona Lisa is Leonardo in the form of a woman. The Last Supper was made in 1495 and took 2 years to finish. There's a theory that the person to the left of Jesus is actually Mary Magdalene, rather than the Apostle John. It was created for a church, but Leonardo did not want to use traditional methods. He used a new technique he created, which failed because the paint started to chip away. Although the church persistently had misfortunes like floods, and during a war a bomb ripped through the ceiling but luckily missed the wall with the painting. Some of his other works include the Annunciation and the Virgin of the Rocks.
Besides just being an artist, Leonardo da Vinci was also a great inventor and engineer. Sometimes the king had assigned Leonardo to design intricate churches and state buildings.
Besides designing buildings, he also designed weapons and vehicles so that the kings and nobles used in time of war. Some of the things that he designed was his machine gun, his tank, and his crossbow. When he wasn't working for some noble or king, he was working on his own sketches of the human body and new transportation methods. Some of his vehicles were like his bike, his glider, and his helicopter. His vehicles were based off some observations of how nature allows things to move, like his glider was based off of bird flight, and his helicopter was based on how a certain type of seed travels from place to place. His war machines are based on the different flaws that Leonardo saw from the weapons that they used in the time.
La simplicità e la sofisticazione ultima.
Besides being one of the best artists of the time and being a great inventor, he was also one of the greatest scientific minds to have ever lived. He had an estimated IQ of 225. There are an enormous amount of observations and experiments that were accomplished and recorded in his sketches and notes. His notebook contains his thoughts on art and science. They contain everything from sketches to inventions to even his grocery list. If we could find all 13,000 pages of his notebook, we could be about 100 years ahead of our time. But unfortunately, his friend accidentally sold more than half of the pages in his notebook. Through his notes, Leonardo da Vinci has left us an uneasy heritage for us to follow. The same is true for a few of his paintings.
Leonardo da Vinci was so intelligent that he was able to use mirror writing. In fact, he could use mirror writing for everything that he wrote, from his journal to his grocery list. He was also so intelligent that he could write with one hand and at the same time sketch with his other hand.
Non si deve desiderare l'impossibile.
Through word and picture, Leonardo observed and recorded natural phenomena and mechanical contrivances of every kind. Leonardo had a different opinion on the meaning of power. It is the knowledge of nature and its process. It is the artist's control to generate using a pen and brush.
Leonardo da Vinci died on May 2, 1519, as one of the most famous figures in the history of art and science. His works have often been imitated and almost always unsurpassed. He is one of the greatest people to ever shadow this earth.
Gli occhi sono lo specchio dell'anima.
The Renaissance period was a period of advances in both art and science. Most people thought that the Renaissance meant a new birth of classical art, but it involved mostly intellectual rebirth. It began after the Middle Ages, which were very dark times. The people began to think and feel like modern people. Leonardo da Vinci was a great part of the Renaissance. His paintings inspired new artists to take a role in the art community. He used new methods of painting, some which worked, like the Mona Lisa, and some failed, like the Last Supper. He didn't paint in the traditional holy way. He used his own styles as shown in the Madonna of the Rocks. He used combinations of shading and color to make 3D paintings that have such precision detail that it's almost real. Our artists today use his techniques that he developed. Another way he contributed to the Renaissance is through his work in science. His many sketches were the most impressive of his time and skyrocketed the science community. His sketches range for designs of vehicles that are very similar to some vehicles we use today, and the first sketches of the human anatomy, both bones and muscle. One of his most famous sketches, The Virtuum Man, shows a perfect man. Some examples of his sketches of vehicles are the tank, his bike prototype, and his glider. His tank is almost exactly similar to the tanks the British used in World War I, except Leonardo da Vinci's tank seemed more effective. His bike design is very similar to the bikes that we use today. And finally, his glider design is based entirely off of bird in flight.
Leonardo da Vinci also related perfectly to the theme turning points in history, people, ideas, events. He lived in a big turning point that led to more art and science, the Renaissance. He was the one person who you might say embodied the Renaissance.
Leonardo also related to the themes for 8th grade too, power, choice, challenge, and change. Leonardo used his art power to influence new artists of the day. He chose to use the scientific method to investigate problems which changed how people experimented from zero to actually experimenting.
He challenged his mind to everyday problems like the moon being visible during the day. And most of all, he changed how we thought about art and science. Art started to spring up during the Renaissance as well as science. He changed other artists and scientists of his time and even today. Taking part in each affected how historians think of him today and how people thought of him at that time.